All right, everybody. This is Jason with another episode of the Inked Up Runner. Tonight, I have a fellow podcaster slash runner. Um, I have Alison Anderson from it's a lot to say. Post race cookie cast. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
That's a whole lot of words to try to say at one time. I was like, I can't butcher this because it's one of those things that's really hard to say fast. And so
It
I was like,
is.
I literally had been practicing it in my head where I didn't bungle it up. So,
That's awesome.
so, so, it's funny, you meet people through different, like whether it's, through different nutritional stuff. And it's one of those things where I think her and I came across each other. I don't know. I think is through some sort of nutritional thing. Maybe it was honey stinger years and years ago.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And so we follow each other on Instagram, interact with each other on Instagram and stuff. And I noticed that she had a podcast, and of course I always jump in and like to listen to a whole bunch of different stuff,
Hmm.
and especially running stuff, and hers grabbed me, because post race cookie cast, and she talks about cookies and running, and she runs too. So I guess before we get into the whole podcast thing, how did you get into the whole running thing? What was your start into the running scene?
I I started late in life. Late, or I guess it was about 7 years ago. I was in my early 30s, like 30, 33, 34. Um, we I was always like a casual exerciser. I would get off work and go to the Y and put in my time on a machine and go home. And that was my whole life up until my early 30s. Then we got a Dalmatian, and I he was more dog than we were expecting. So he
Mhm.
was, I was walking him before work, and then I got to the point where I was like, we're walking for like an hour before work every day, at 5 in the morning, and it's not enough. And I was like, Buddy, we got to learn how to run together." So we literally started, like, we would like run a street, walk a street, until we kind of built up this 5K loop in our neighborhood. And we ran a 5K every day for a year. And my I have friends who are runners, and they were like, I mean, if you want to try to run something else, you can. So registered for a half marathon, did several of those until I finally happened upon, I, I was running on the road all the time. I didn't know anything about anything else. And I registered for a 25K um, at a state park that's about an hour north. It's in Kansas of where I am in Oklahoma. And I didn't know anything about what I was getting into at all. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about trail running. I think I wore street shoes, as some people do. And I think in this 25K, it's Kansas. What would you expect? You're like, it's what will you even come across? It's a lot. It was about 2,500 feet of climbing, which is a lot for Kansas.
Mhm.
And it's an out and back, and the first 4 miles are in and out of like a natural limestone quarry. So you're just up and down the whole time, hoisting yourself between boulders. And I at the end of it, I was, bloody and bruised, and I that's when I started trail running. As one does. So
That's usually how it starts, right? I mean, it's usually like I remember. I think I even told. I don't know if I told the story in the last show. I repeat the same stories a lot. When you do this, you tell the same stories. But I remember my first trail race was a race down in Alabama at Oak Mountain State Park, and it was a 10 mile race, and I can't remember the elevation gain other than it was like a whole lot. And I remember as soon as the race started, you went straight up. And I remember
Right.
this older gentleman was beside me, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "It's going all right." And I was like, "Hey, it's my first trail race." And he was like, "Boy, you were an idiot for picking this one." And I was like, "Well, damn, why is that?" And he was like, "You'll see." And he just laughed, and he just took off running, and then, I found out that, um, it was a lot different because did, nothing but road running
Yeah.
up to that point. And then I got some friends that introduced me to what trail running looked like, and a friend had taken me out trail running, but it was like in a very easy,
Right.
flattish, pretty area where like grandmas come and walk their dogs and stuff. And it
Right.
was nothing what I, signed up for in Alabama.
Right. There's so many, you're like, this is not those kind of like buttery where it's just dirt, you're like, I would still consider that a road. Like until you get to something that you trip over all the time, that's kind of then I'm like that now we're talking.
Absolutely. And what's funny though is I was talking to Jason Green, and I don't and I think it was the first time I interviewed him, and we were talking about the Yeti course. Is It's like very gravelly, and it's super smooth for the most part compared to
Yeah.
not technical at all. I'll be honest with you, Allison, I've seen more people fall on that course than I had any other course. Even the most technical courses, like, I ran, I ran part of the Mountain Mist course, and I ran, several technical style courses, and you really don't see a lot of people fall on those courses. But at that Yeti course, I'm thinking what happens to us a lot of times is these flat courses, we get lazy, right?
True. Yeah.
Because we're
And
not picking our feet up as much.
you're not changing your gait at all, and you're not like I mean, it's that whole thing. I think they said at the beginning of that 25K, and now I hear it all the time. Race directors say it all the time, but if you're looking up, you're falling down, and because when you're on a technical trail, you have to constantly be aware. But when you kind of are on one of those flat courses, then you drift and everything changes. Yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah, but on the flip side of it, and I think, but and then the thing is with that course is there's so much to see.
True.
You automatically want to look up, because
Yeah.
that creeper trail just has a ton to offer
Right.
visually. So you did that. And did you ever, from, you did the half marathon, did you run a marathon and then get into the ultra scene, or did you just go straight from like the half distance into like that 50K distance?
I did a lot of well, so no, I did one road marathon. I've done one road marathon ever. Getting ready to do my second one, so we'll see what that's about. Um, but I went into a lot of there's a race series in Texas called Trail Racing Over Texas,
Hmm.
and all of their weekends have variable distances. So I would always kind of be in the 15 to 20 mile range. I did a lot of those for a while. That was kind of a comfortable place for me. And I don't really remember what happened, but at some point I just signed up for a 50 miler and was like, I'll just go from 20 to 50, I guess, and we'll see what happens next. I never did a 50. I've done 50K since then, but I never did any. I did that one road marathon and then like jumped to 50.
So you went straight to the 50 miler. It's funny because I've literally only done one road marathon, and
Right.
um and I have one in November, but it's a weird one because it's on a paved surface, but it's not. It's called the Flying Monkey, and it's incredibly hard. It has like, I don't know, it has like right underneath 3,000 feet of gain, and it's in like this
Wow.
park. Yeah, and it's super tough. But so you went from that distance to the 50 miler.
Yeah.
Um, did you did the transition go, pretty smooth for you?
Um, in retrospect, I did not do enough to get ready for that 50 miler. Uh, it was kind of an interesting thing. I That happened in 2020. It was at the end of 2020, and they held it still. They still did it, but they did this like staggered start time kind of thing. So I I like to travel to a race, but I'm a get in and get out kind of a gal. So like to I like a race where I can go and stay in my car overnight, race it and get back in my car, you know.
Hmm.
And so I did that, but they had this like staggered time. So you had a 5-minute window where you started completely by yourself. Um for and then you as what happens with ultras, you ended by yourself just because that's what happens. But so it was very weird, and I didn't know what other people were doing. I didn't know if other people were running all the time or how any of it worked really. And so in retrospect, you always should have done some more long runs or anything like that. But I felt good the whole time. So I felt like I had done okay with it. Now I'm much more into the long runs, and I've got a better strategy for how to prepare as you do over time, as it goes.
Absolutely. And that's what I found. I think the my first experience with it, I was lucky because, of course, it was the damn Yeti, and I started running with a lady, and I had no idea what I was doing because I had only
Right.
ran 50 Ks. And so I was talking to her, and I'm like, we were talking about our strategy, and she's like, I'm going to start running intervals. And I had never ran intervals in my life. Right.
Yeah.
And so before I knew it, I was running intervals with her. And I'll be honest with you, like if I had not linked up with this lady, I probably would not have had the race that I had. I ended up having like a tremendously good race there.
Yeah.
And but I didn't prepare at all, like you said, because you don't know what to expect, right? Because
Yeah, you don't.
it's such a big difference between like it's not as much as a 100 miler, but it's a little bit more than the 50K. And it's like, how do you prepare for 50 miles?
Right. It's a Especially when like you've done one road marathon, you don't really need, I mean, you need to fuel during a road marathon, but you don't need to eat
No, not
during
really.
like a road marathon. But in a 50-mile, you need to eat something. It's, like that was my first time kind of moving from some sort of sport nutrition to any kind of like real food while I was eating. And that was interesting. I had so many, um, at, I, at an aid station I grabbed, they had Little Debbie, the little birthday cake, little square, not square, they're
Hmm.
little rectangle things. I just had them shoved in everywhere and I ate them the whole time. I hadn't practiced with them. It went fine, but that was scary. So, but I was so terrified that I wasn't going to make it through the day that I forced myself to do intervals. Because normally, I always kind of drift a little towards the back of the pack at a starting line, and I will find someone and I'll kind of start slow and talk with them, for a good half mile or a mile or even, most of the race. And I was like, oh, I'm starting by myself. Now I'm accountable for everything I do.
Hmm.
Like, so if I had not done intervals, I don't think I would have finished. So
Yeah, it's really it's a game changer when you think about it, because like I know, like, did you, so it didn't sound like you struggled with eating a solid food. So can you pretty much eat whatever during races? Have you found that out?
I actually, yeah, I can eat any kind of solid food. It's actually the sports nutrition stuff that will upset my stomach the most. So I like Huma gels, but other than that, I don't any of the rest of it will give me a stomach ache, but I can stop and eat handfuls of peanut butter M&Ms and M's and I'm fine. So
Mhm.
that's my go-to is peanut butter
Peanut
M&Ms.
peanut butter M&Ms, there you go. It's a plug for the M&Ms. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, it's interesting because, at that race, I was so jacked. I think at mile gosh, what mile was it? It was right before it was probably around 20 no, it was mile 30. It was 3 miles from the turnaround. I remember coming into this aid station and this guy like had like this beer, and of course this is all pre-COVID, and he was like, here, take a swig. And of course I was all jacked. I like took a swig, and he was like, here, shoot fireball, and he handed me fireball. He's like,
Right.
here, take another shot of beer, and I was like, it's like, the whole baptized by fire into the ultra scene, that was, and that's still, that was my first experience kind of, into, the whole Yeti kind of scene. I mean, I'd ran
Yeah.
2 races before that, but it was nothing like what I experienced there, because I'd ran Strolling Jim before that, and there was like, that's a Laz race, and there's no food at that. I mean, the
Right.
water's sitting on the side of the road,
Yeah.
literally in a Kroger jug. Um, and then I'd ran Yamakra, and I was so shell shocked. I couldn't even tell you. I can't even remember what food they had there. If that
Oh
tell, I mean,
man.
I literally don't remember anything other than it was cold and wet
Oh,
and rained and snowed. That's all I remember. I can't even tell you about the food. But at that Yeti race, I can tell you all about it because it was just, it was much more memorable, right? So
right.
so so you ran the 50 miler, and you said you ran the 50 before the 50K, right?
Yeah, I did that and then I ventured into some long distance triathlon. So last year was the year that, everything got everything that you had registered for from the previous year, and then when it got canceled you registered for something else hoping it would be open, and then all of those races happened last year.
Mhm.
So last year I think I did like 2 half Ironmans and a couple 25Ks and then a 50K in the fall, and that was my first real life trail 50K was in the fall because everything before that had been either 20 or 50 miles. So I was grateful. I didn't that was a that's a it, that one is a 31-mile loop. And so there is no 50 mile for that. It's 50K or 100K. Those are your two choices. And I was grateful that I was only doing the one, just one loop. So
The loop, and those are nice where it's like
yes.
it's one big loop, and that's like super nice. I know that, like, in my opinion, those the point the points and those big looped courses are like
Hmm.
literally like my favorite
Yeah.
style of course to run. I say that, but at the same time, like, I've ran that Yeti course like a bazillion times, and I think it's mainly, and I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that I just really love the atmosphere out there, and
Yeah.
the fact that it's just such a scenic and beautiful place out there. But you said you got into the tri scene. What was that like? I mean, did you feel, I mean, obviously you felt comfortable doing it, but like, did was that something that you had always kind of wanted to do, and this was like, what the hell, let me just try this out?
No, um I had never swam other than, like lake swimming that you do when you're a kid. I had never actually swam or learned to swim. I learned to swim like 3 years ago, I think, and took some adult swimming lessons. That's very humbling, if you've never experienced that. And I had never really ridden like a road bike. I had a cruiser, and my husband used to do a lot of road biking, but I had never done that. And I I just kind of fell into it, and I really enjoy it. It's just it's a different atmosphere. I find that I get really frustrated at at those kind of events sometimes, because it's a lot about appearance and, having the best gear, and like I don't
Mhm.
ride a tri bike and people, that kind of thing. And so um that part's hard. But I thought it was hilarious because the first sprint triathlon I ever did, it's we're in Oklahoma City and it starts pouring rain before we even get started. And if you run trails, they happen in whatever weather is happening outside. There is no, you know, if you're just in it, whatever's going on.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so I'm sitting there by my bike, just soaked in the rain, and everyone is like scrambling to cover all their stuff. And I'm like, eventually it's just going to get wet, but I'm watching all these people with you know, their aero helmets and their, crazy kits, and they're trying to get everything covered. And I was like, this is the difference, I think, between me and you. Like,
It's
I would,
it's it's funny though you say that, because that's literally like the mindset of an ultra runner, right? It's just going to get wet anyway, right?
yeah, you're going to get as wet as, I mean, you can only get so wet and then you're maxed out. I mean, so I, when I like to run in the rain, I'm like, just do it. Just like, I'll try and find a big puddle or something to just go ahead and just get it over with, because it's the initial getting wet that's the worst. So just just do it, be done with it.
That's right, absolutely. Because I remember, like, I was that first 50K I ran at Yamacraw. You had like 46 creek crossings,
Yeah.
and so your feet stayed wet the entire time, and it was already cold. And I had a friend who was talking about how he wanted to change socks at like mile, I don't know, it was like around the marathon point. And I was like, why are you even going to do that? Because your feet is
Why?
just going to turn around and get wet again. And he said, but for him, it was more of a morale thing, just to enjoy having the dry feet for just a little bit. But I'm the same way a lot of times, unless it's a situation where, like, I remember the year that I ran the Yeti 100, and it had that tropical storm. I think I had 3 or 4 complete outfit changes, because
Oh,
you were just soaked to the bone. And of course, you have to worry about hypothermia and all that kind of stuff, because it was cooler outside. But I remember once it started, everybody was trying to like stay dry, and I was just like, it's not going to matter.
yeah. It's just over. It is what
It's
it is.
it is what
Like,
it is. It is what it is. So um at what point did you really start, at what point did you start thinking about, hey, I want to make a podcast, or I want to start talking about running? Because I can tell you, like, for me, the whole thing started was, um I had never, like, you have the adventure jogger here locally,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ryan is on a level that, he's
Oh,
like one of the premier running podcasts out there, right?
yeah.
Um, and so, but I was thinking, he does audio, nobody does video, and I'm like, I want to do a video one. I want people to be able to see the person that I'm interviewing, because I think it would be cool, right? And
Right.
so,
Yeah.
so that's how I got into mine. So, how did you get into yours? And tell us the whole storyline behind the title and all that kind of stuff.
So I am on my second co-host now, but my first co-host was my buddy Norm. And he kind of came up with the concept. We were kind of talking, he kind of witnessed some of my initial triathlon journey. We actually both had, um, before it was like the big thing that it is now, we both had a like an Echelon spin bike,
Hmm.
and we like we had just had this small group of friends who all kind of took the same, did the same like long rides on this spin bike. And we started, we kind of hooked up, like, there's a little group chat on Facebook, and he kind of thought he might want to get into, he'd been an athlete, like he was like a runner in high school and things like that, but he had never done anything past, his high school cross country days. And he he thought of me as like the natural, and he was going to be the newbie, and we were going to like go through like learning to race and being adults with jobs, and how does, just talking about how that works. And why I don't do, I couldn't tell you a single PR of my own. I don't know any of them. I only know distance PR. Like, my longest distance is X. I don't know any of my times for anything. I don't like times. I kind of run away like my hair is on fire when you start to have like comparisons of times. It makes me very uncomfortable. So I was like, I do this because I just want to challenge, my body to do everything, to do anything it can. I just come up with something and I want to see if I can do it. And so I was like, that's the reward, is finishing. And, at the end, there's always a reward, right?
Hmm.
So that, we chose cookies because I bake a lot. So that was kind of where you do it for the reward of finishing it, not for, you know, the times or whatever. You do it for the love of doing it. And that's kind of where it came from. Um he he decided, like, he wants to be a personal health coach. So he kind of stepped back, and I invited a fellow running friend on, who I would now consider to be the natural, because she's run her whole life. And she's a running coach. And so our big goal is mainly just, we talk about running, we talk a lot about snacks. It's mostly snacks, I think, actually. We think about snacks a lot, we talk about snacks, we message about snacks constantly. And but we also, we kind of go through, like, if you've never swam, we did an episode on, how do we start swimming? What do you do? What is a swim workout? Like, if you're a runner and you've never been a swimmer, the concept of a swim workout, like the first few times I did it, I got in the pool and just tried to swim as much as I could. And I would get like 200 meters and be like, this is awful, and get out. And I actually realized, like a structured swim workout was what I want, which is the last thing I ever want in a running workout. Like, I hate quality sessions. So it's, we just talk about that stuff, like how to get started in doing something, or how to, what's out there that's new that we want to try. Or, and then the guests that we have on are just regular people with regular jobs and lives that we think are doing cool things. And that's what people think a lot, that there's a magic amount of time that you can spend, or, that, I don't know, that we may have, so that something's different about our lives. But really, we work, she has kids, I work a crazy schedule, and we talk about how you fit it in, how you work it in with your family, and you make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really great about what you do is the fact that it's relatable, right? Because
Yeah.
it's easy to, it's easy to, have like it's easy to listen to these folks like that. I like to call them these superhumans. Some of these
Right.
superhumans that I interview, that's done all these remarkable things, and they're normal people too. And that's one of the things that I like to get through into my interview sometimes is like, there's a starting point for everybody. And
Yeah.
what I think is cool about you guys is like, you guys talk about relatable style stuff that the average person can relate to where, like, like, for example, like when I was interviewing Peter Mortimer, and he was talking about how, he went to hurt just to get a quality finish, and then he ends up winning the damn thing. I
Right.
mean, that, let me tell you, that has never happened to me ever in my life. First off,
Right.
I've won one age group award ever, right? And
Right. Yeah.
it was some small ass half
Like
marathon
tiny race.
in the country here in Tennessee.
Right.
And but people love to hear when people do hard stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's why, like,
Oh,
for me
that's worse.
personally, like a good mixture of listening to these, unbelievable stories of people doing these remarkable things, and then I like listening to shows like yours where, you're just talking about normal stuff, like the gear you like to use,
Yep.
the stuff you like to eat. I mean, that type of stuff I think is really, is really cool. So, and I think, so when you guys are like planning out your episodes and whatnot, like how do you come up with like what you're talking about? Because like for me personally, there's no science behind the way I pick interviews out. Like
No.
I literally see you and I'm like, I want to talk to her. And so I like message you and I'm like, can I talk to you? And and what some people say yes, and some people say no, so that's the way my
It's
interviewing works.
it's the same. I think she's kind of a I'm trying to get my light right because the sun's going down here, but the she has a little bit, grander ideas of things, but she's also in that world. I mean, her 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 running coach is Jacob Puzzi. I mean, it's yeah, like she's in a world that I'm not in, but so I just am like, hey, this girl on Instagram that I've been friends with since Sisters started, she just paced at Western States, and I mostly she talks about knitting on her Instagram. Let's talk to her. Like, I think it'd be awesome, and that's usually how we come up with any kind of guest. um and then we kind of have we have a little list of things for, side conversations where it's just going to be the two of us. Kind of, in light of recent events, we're probably going to do like a safety episode soon.
Hmm.
And just talk about, how we feel about all those issues and how we address them, how we get past them so we can go out and go for a run.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, what frustrates me is like I saw somebody post something on Facebook, and the comment was like, it really ticked me off. It was like, who goes running at 4:30 in the morning in Memphis? And I'm like, first off, you obviously don't run, so
Right.
you don't know how it works, right?
Right.
From what I understand, she was familiar with where she was at,
Yeah. It was
and she had children, so she probably needed to get her run done early. And I
yeah.
think at the end of the day, it doesn't give anybody the right to do what happened to her just because she's running at 4:30 in the morning in Memphis. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
people just say the stupidest things, I think.
It is like I saw one of those types of comments and my immediate gut reaction was you know, the runner who was, the same thing happened to her in Iowa. She was running in the middle of the morning. It was like 9:30 in the morning. So time doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't matter. It's how we approach, what we think about, when we see a woman running alone versus a man running alone. And it's it's a thing that I don't know, like no one knows the answer to. Nobody knows what we do, where we go from here. But it's a thing that seems to be happening more and more. So,
Oh, it absolutely is. And I mean, a story that I think honestly have never shared this. I actually a few years ago got chased by some guys at
wow.
it was like 5:30 in the morning, maybe 6 o'clock. It was closer to six. Um, and that it was very close to my neighborhood and in an adjacent neighborhood, and the homes there are extremely nice. Like
Right.
we're talking like a very more of a higher scale neighborhood, and it was I was actually chased by some guys in a high end, like I think it was like a Mustang,
Wow.
and so it's just like you don't know what's going to happen to you when you go out there, and
Right.
safety is important, right?
It's a big thing. We're usually alone. I mean, especially when you get into like training for ultras and things like that. You're not doing a ton of group runs usually. I mean, there's going to be times when you're alone and you're alone for a long time. And I think there have been things that help address it. Strava now deletes the first, what is it, quarter mile and in
Hmm.
quarter mile, I think. Stuff like that, helps prevent, but a lot of it is circumstance. I
In this
mean,
circumstance, you're right.
I it's so I don't know where you go from there, but we're having a conversation about it, which is a start. So,
Absolutely. And I think and the thing about it is I think another thing a lot of people don't realize is and unless she was an established ultra runner.
yeah.
Her husband was an established ultra runner, and the thing is, unless you have ran an ultra marathon, you don't realize, this is going to sound dramatic, but it's really not. You really, depending on the race and where you're at, you are putting yourself in danger wherever, in some of these
Yeah.
instances on some of these races you're at. And so a lot of times running in Memphis at 4:30 in the morning really don't probably seem that dangerous to you if you're out running in the middle of the night on the Pinhoti Trail,
Yeah.
where there are wild animals that could attack you at any moment.
Yeah.
It's just like I think there's a lot to unpack that people just I don't think they understand it and get it, but
Yeah.
but I think back to your point, there has to be a conversation about safety and, what can you do to protect yourself if somebody does approach you, right?
Right. It's I mean, we had a friend of mine on as a guest last year, and I think we're gonna have her back. Uh she's Native American, indigenous, and she has a whole different take on this because that's a community where this kind of thing has happened for a long time, and we don't talk about it. But she, she has a gun. I don't have a gun. That's like in Oklahoma, you assume everyone does, but I don't have one. But I mean, she has a gun. So what do you do? What do you do next? You know, do do you where do you go from here? So,
Right. And even and here's the thing, even if you got a gun, that's not guaranteed to save you,
no.
right? I
Right.
mean, it really depends on, like you said, the circumstance. in what's really happening. I mean, if you get, like, if you get ambushed by somebody, there's no way you're going to be able to
Right.
pull a gun on them. And I think I think the important thing is trying to have some sort of safety system in place to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Whether that's, having the some sort of beacon on, or
Right.
having, like, if, I know if you have an iPhone, they have the Find My iPhone, where you can literally, like, know where a relative is,
Right.
or what that really looks like, right?
Right. I mean, that's kind of I have a good friend of mine, we're talking about maybe a big, trail adventure next year, and prior to this happening, we were talking about, the Garmin beacons, and like we should probably get some of those if we're going to go on this, big multi-day, hike adventure together. But we were just like, because we may get lost, but but now it's a different conversation. We're like, maybe we should just be having those. Maybe we should just have that kind of thing on us when we run. Maybe we should do that. I mean, I tell my husband, I'm like, I'm going to run. I'll be, like tomorrow I'll go out to our trail system and run in the morning, and I just tell him I'll be back around this time. That's all he knows. Like, you know, should he know where I am? Or should he be able to locate me? Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know when I go to run, I always tell my wife exactly where I'm going to be. Like, especially after that time I got chased. I'll
Well,
say,
yeah.
even if it's like when I get off work at 4, I'll say I'm going to, run around the loop here, and
Yeah.
she'll know exactly where I'm talking about. Or I'll say I'm going to the greenway to run into the battlefield, and she'll know exactly, hey, he's going to be in the battlefield in the greenway. And
Yeah.
she'll know exactly. And that's like, we're to the point now where, like, I've just started backpacking. It's one of those deals where if you're going to be out in the woods for multi days, it's almost critical to have one of those satellite Garmin,
Yeah.
little phone things that you can attach. I know my buddy John used one during, I think they're like the spots.
Yeah.
He used his when he ran Scar, for us to be able to track where he was on the trail, because you're out in the wilderness.
Right.
If you don't see, if you have a relative out, camping or hiking, and you don't see them move in the span of 2 or 3 hours, then you might need to call for help, right? Because
There's
something could
something
have.
possibly happening. And
Right.
it's honestly shocking that I haven't looked into it before now, because if somebody's going to get lost, it might be me. Like I did a trail marathon last fall that I got totally lost on. And it was one of those situations where it's like crosses over several trails. There's several distances all doing different trails. And there was a point in the race instructions where it's like you get to the top of the hill and you take a tiny toy out of the basket, and then you take it to the bottom of the hill, and that's how they know you went all the way up, like crazy instructions like that the whole time. And so I I got lost, and it should have occurred to me then, like, I don't know how to find my way out. This is not my trail system. I've never been here before. So
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it happens. I mean,
yeah.
we was, right before COVID hit, I ran the Chattanooga 50. And you know, there was never a point where my safety was compromised, but me and a friend, we missed a turn and went way out of the way, and some guys that were mountain biking was like, "Hey, are you guys running in the race?" And we're like, "Yeah." And
Yeah,
like, "You missed your turn about a mile and a half back there." And you were like, so
exactly.
we had to turn around and go back. And then this is even funnier. We rejoined the race, got back on the right trail, and then there was another turnoff we missed because somebody had moved the marker. So we had went all the
Oh,
way down and realized that we had not went the right way, and then had to turn around and come back.
Oh my
So that
gosh.
50 miler ended up being way longer than it really should have been because we got turned around. But that was in a situation where we our safety was never really
Right.
in compromise because we were in a very populated area. But like,
Yeah.
you flip it around and you're on a more remote area on a much harder race or something like that, then it could definitely, there could be some safety issues. But back to what we were initially talking about, running inside of a city, there definitely has to be, I think there definitely has to be some sort of conversation moving forward about what people can do. I say people because it could happen to anybody,
Yeah.
getting mugged, assaulted, robbed,
Yeah.
raped, whatever, right?
Right. Harassed by a driver. I mean, that happens. Like people seem to just there seem to be people that are just annoyed that you're out there. That you're
Mhm.
like, I don't know why, but I mean, I had a friend who was just running, I live in a quiet suburb. Not a lot happens here, but she was out for a morning run and just teenagers egged her like
Wow, that's
while she was
crazy.
running. And so you're like just for no reason. And she was a block from her house, it's just something about, I don't know. Do we go back to when we were children and you're supposed to, keep to your own space, let people have their space?
Right, absolutely. It's just really staggering, and it's really sad that what happened to her, because it's just like, it just makes you, it's just silly that somebody just can't go out and exercise without
Yeah,
having to worry about being bothered by somebody who has ill intentions. It's just
right.
it's just it's just absolutely terrible. But so, you know, these are things that you're going to be focusing on.
Yes, we,
I know we kind
we
of got
did.
off on that, but that's all right.
Sorry, I do that.
Um, no, no, you're good. And this is like I told you before we started. This is kind of the path that my interviews typically go. Um, I guess the future for you. What have you got planning for running? What are some of your short term and long term goals you got?
I so I've put the triathlon thing on hold for a bit. I think I felt like 2 half Ironmans in a year was a pretty good accomplishment, and I could maybe, just put that on hold. I do still train as though I'm going to do them, so I very rarely run 2 days in a row, unless I'm getting to like the end of training for something. So I'm biking and swimming all the time. But I have a, I have a, I'm down for a 25K anytime. So doing one of those in a few weeks, just to be able to run with a friend. We're gonna go see some friends, and I'm gonna run with her. Um, and then I decided I really wanted to focus on my kind of technical abilities, like things that I'm lacking. I can keep signing up for the same types of races over and over, but I mean, we're in Oklahoma. Um, the terrain is, it's rocky and technical, but it's not, we don't have climbing. So I have an actual 50K in the mountains in March in Arkansas.
Mm,
So my short-term focus is really on climbing a lot, um, getting way more used to that than I am at present. And beyond that, I kind of want to, I feel like right now I want to stay in the 50K kind of range. Next year, I I want to do some adventuring, I would call it, some extended hikes and kind of seeing new things, and maybe another, probably, I mean, yeah, probably another 50K in the fall, I would assume at a minimum. But that's kind of, I I want to focus on the adventure of it right now. and I want to go to some places I haven't been and do some exploring. Um, so
That's the best.
that's my big goal.
That's the best. That's the best stuff. I can tell you the probably the best run I've ever been on, and I think I just told Jason Green this last interview, so this is another repeat story, was um, me and three friends started um, at the in Gatlinburg at the aquarium, and we
Okay.
ran all the way to the top of Mount LeConte. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and that was an amazing day. I think it ended up, I can't remember the mileage on it. It was around 20-ish miles round trip. But it was just remarkable, but it was a good time. But
That's kind of
so
I have my friend is, she's kind of just off the AT in Pennsylvania, and I've come out and done some running on the AT before, just little sections though, little parts. And so we kind of want to do some section hiking, and then in the fall we're looking at possibly some hiking in South America.
well, that's
So
exciting.
yeah, we have some big goals that we're kind of like, I just want to see some things that would I just want to climb some mountains and see some things.
Oh yeah, that's a good time right there. Um, so show wise, have you got,
Yeah.
what's coming up on your show? You're working on a safety episode. What else you
Yep.
got lined
We
up?
got a safety episode. We always keep a few, we like to do a top three episode. So we'll do our top three. We'll just pick three categories and we'll both do our top three of those. And it's like, running songs to add to your playlist, or race goals or dream races, or sometimes it's not even related to exercise at all. It might just be like, I think we did organic chocolate a couple weeks ago, and turns out I don't like it that much. But um so it's we'll have a top three coming up, and then we have a friend of ours named Danny who just started kind of getting into running. She did her first marathon and she's training for Chicago now.
It's exciting.
Um, and she does some fun. She's a fitness instructor, and so she does some fun. Like she took a running group. She was part of a running group that she was a coach for, that went to Iceland a few weeks ago, and they ran in Iceland. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, and now I want to do it. So
I
she'll
actually
be
had a friend who
on.
did that. I had a friend who just did that.
Yeah, I mean, he might have been with her. Like
It was just, I
it's
think it was in Iceland. Yeah, she had a bunch of pictures.
it's amazing looking.
Yeah.
So we'll have her on in a few weeks, and then we'll be actually into race season. We'll talk about some races, because she's doing she lives in Florida. She's doing a 50K there that's entirely in sand, which sounds awful. It sounds terrible, but
What's the name? You know the name of it?
I cannot think of it off the top of my
Is it
head.
called the Dunes?
It might be.
I had a friend who ran a race like that, and they said it was miserable.
I can't imagine anything worse than 50K in the sand, but you know, she's gonna try it. And I'm doing the Richmond Marathon. Gonna go see some friends out there and see what running that long on the road is like again. Yikes.
Yes, it's a long time. I'm about to experience it again myself
Right.
in a couple months, and I'm not prepared for that. But well, this has been a really good time talking with you. I always enjoy, like I tell people, my favorite part of doing this is just meeting people
Yeah.
and listen to them talk about, like, their running, and like what they enjoy, like what they enjoy about running, and their whole journey and whatnot. And what's even cooler is you have a show. So I definitely will in the show notes, I will link Allison's podcast. I will make sure to link their Instagram page and all that stuff so you guys can give it a listen. I highly urge you to, check it out and give her a listen because it's fun.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, it kind of turned into the Blair Witch Project in here. I didn't really anticipate that the sound would go down while we were recording.
Oh no, 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 no! Trust me. If you knew how many, you can go back and watch the whole evolution of my shows and lighting. Me and lighting are, yeah, we have a good time. This is probably the best lighting I've had. I can't tell you in forever. Like I have some where I look exactly like you, where it looks
uh,
like I actually like the way it looks. I think it looks cooler than the way my lighting looks right now. So
I that was my first thought, like Blair Witch Project. And then I thought, that is how the sun works. I mean, it's up for a while and then it goes down. It's crazy how it works.
oh yeah, and it's one of those things where I have an experience playing around with it because the sun is obviously down here too because we're on the same time zone. So
Right.
uh, so
So
so anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this week. As always, we'll have a video and audio version. Like I said, I'm going to link all her fun stuff in the show notes on the YouTube page. I also will link it in the show notes on my SoundCloud link as well. And I guess that's it. As always,
yeah.
I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate you being on, Allison. And I guess until the next time, I will see you on the trail.